Today is another exciting day for all the brain sharers. Good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited because we have 500 brain sharers in the room today, this very afternoon. Woo! Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this wonderful session. We're truly very excited. This afternoon, before we start, I'd like to invite everyone to go to the chat box, introduce yourself, what school you're coming from or organization, and leave an adjective that describes you. So this is how it goes. Your name, your organization, and then the adjective, just one adjective that best describes you. All right, we'll give you a few minutes to do this so that we can see how many we are in this chat box now, and how many resonate with the same description. Thank you. Do we see the introduction there? Introduce yourself, please. Good. All right. Good. Are we seeing more? Introduce yourself, please. Just use your chat box. Go to your chat box, put your name there, and the school or organization you're coming from, and the adjective that would best describe you. Let's keep that going. Let me see. All right. So we see a lot of you here. Let me just read some. Wow, I love the word passionate, a good listener. All right. Wow, thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you. Adjusting. That's good. We need people who have that capability. Empowered. I see the word empowered. Digitally inclined. Receptive. Wonderful. All right. Keep going, everyone. Keep going while we're waiting for everyone to get in the room. So far, I'm seeing more on the waiting room to come in. While waiting for them, let's keep reading and let's keep introducing ourselves. This is now the new normal. This is the way we introduce ourselves this time. We do not do the handshake anymore because we're all virtual. So we just have to make sure that we get the most of this technology. Let's keep going. Let's keep introducing ourselves. Your name, your organization, and the adjective that best describes you. Thank you. Keep going. All right. This afternoon, our discussion would be how to transform schools through learning and development mindset. And in this discussion, we would try to understand what does it take to influence learning teams. How can schools manage expectations of its clients? And why do we need to reboot our URL? Say that with me, URL. Or unlearning, relearning, and learning focus. So these are the discussions that will be shared to everyone, and we will keep it open. The question and answer, the reactions, the hand raising. We'll do all of this very proactively together. All right. Also, we would be welcoming special people who took their time, who paid us their time to be with us this afternoon. I am very happy that we are joined by education leaders, and I'd like to thank them individually. I'd like to thank the president of St. Paul University of Philippines, Sister Mercedes Ang. Thank you, sister, for being with us once again. We also have the executive vice president of Faith Colleges, Mr. Juan Lozano. Right. Thank you. We have the chairperson of Secondary Education Program of Bukidnon Speech University, Ms. Desiree Barroso. We also have the director of University of De Santa Isabel, Mr. Randy Inigo, the director of Asian Institute of Maritime Studies, Ms. Joy Garner, director of Extension Services of Bulacan State University, Ms. Mary Ann Carranza. Welcome. The manager of PAGCOR. This is the Philippine Association of Gaming Corporation. Did I say that right? Mr. Edwin Perez. Sir, thank you so much. The president and CEO of Redefine Learning, our partner, and at the same time the president of Hero of International Business of Hero, Mr. Nikhil Chopra, the dear partner, and also the CEO of Golden Press, Miss Maria Bilanlim. Wonderful that you are with us, ma'am. The manager of learning and development of Alstom Transport, Aparahita Das. Welcome. The administrator of Caprisa, Ms. Angela Tejada. Supervisor from the Department of Education, Ms. Rosemary Blando. Senior manager and data operations of Careers 360, Paber Mohanty. Hello. Thank you for being here. Administrator of the Kid Vantage Learning Center Incorporated, Ms. Maria Cristina Abayon. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us. The manager of SCASI Commercial, Ms. Sheila Libres. Also the Senior Education Program Specialist of the Department of Education, Mr. Nico Aquino. Directress of St. Therese Martin of Lesu School, that's Ms. Jocelyn Valde Abelia. Hello, ma'am. The president of STI College Malolos, Mr. Kervin Cao. Sir, thank you for signing up. Also, the president of STI Balayan Incorporated, Miss Ellen Christie Di Maano. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you being here. And my favorite dean from the College of Business at Ateneo Graduate School, who happens also to be the president of STI College Santa Rosa and a member of Board of Trustees of the Cocopea, Professor Antonio del Carmen, whom we will be privileged to hear in a while because I requested him to share his message. And also, finally, we are grateful that our regional director from the Commission on Higher Education National Capital Region is also here with us, Dr. Virginia Aquiate. Thank you so much for all of your support, dear education leaders. The different organizations represented this afternoon, we have recognized them earlier, but I wouldn't like to miss to mention them still. The Department of Education teachers who are here. Can we give ourselves a round of applause? Thank you so much. All right, I'm waiting for the applause. Mariano Marcos State University. All right, let's do it. We still have our hands. This is the new thing. Our Lady of Perpetual Succor College. All right. Bukidnon State University. You have been faithful in this webinar room. Thank you so much. Claret School of Quezon City. We have Guangming College, Laguna State Polytechnic University. I think I've missed to include Dr. Ellen Calio here, the Vice President of Laguna State Polytechnic University, as one of our education leaders. I apologize, Doc. Also a hero member and advocate. Thank you so much for being with us. Also, participants from other universities, participants from the secondary and primary education and other organizations. We couldn't thank you enough for making this webinar warmer because of your presence. All right. This webinar is a tribute to all our education leaders. This is for you. We're doing this because we'd like to encourage you, would like to salute you, would like to thank you for thinking forward. We know the travails, we know the problems, the challenges that we're facing. But on the uptake, we are grateful because we're here together, we're working forward, and we're encouraging one another. And that for me is inspiring and wonderful. All right. So since we are paying a tribute to all of the education leaders in the room and even those who are watching on our FB Live, we are um, allowing ourselves a little time to reflect on a timeless message from the speech of President Theodore Roosevelt, which is entitled The Man in the Arena. Allow me, this is one of my favorites. The Man in the Arena by the former President Theodore Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles, or whether the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short over and over again. But there is no effort without error and shortcomings. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of highest achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never knew victory nor defeat. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we formally start and before I formally offer you our best gift for this afternoon, our guest speaker, I have requested two beautiful people who are warriors for education themselves. I'd like to start with my favorite dean, Dr. Del Carmen, to please come in and share us his thoughts and message. Prof, short notice, but you've always shown up. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Bryce. And I'm really very privileged to be part of this webinar that you have organized. And I think it's really very timely that we talk about transformation because that's what this pandemic is forcing all of us to go into a transformation of some sorts. But as it has always been, transformation has always been difficult, especially during this time when we are getting into a different normal. It's not just simply new normal, it's something different, and we need to be able to harness all our innovativeness and creativity. No? But in spite of the situation that we are in right now, education cannot stop. Education has and should continue. Man over the centuries have evolved primarily because of his ability to transmit and transfer know-how and knowledge to the next generation. And we cannot stop doing that, because if we do, we will become extinct. But today, because of all of the situation, we may have to keep our minds open, because we need to really think out of the box, maybe even get rid of the box, so that we can address the situation in a different manner, in a different strategy. So I'm very excited for this webinar this afternoon, and I hope that all of us will start rolling up our sleeves, as you have earlier said. We need to be at the forefront. We need to be on the battleground. We need to be inside the arena, so that we can really create something different and something new for the sake of our for the sake of our students. Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you so much. You've heard a wonderful message from one of the members of the board of Trustees of the Cocopeia. And Cocopeia, for your information, ladies and gentlemen, stands for, all right, let me read that. Stands for Coordinating Council of Private Educational Associations of the Philippines. And they have 4 organizations, right, Prof? You
Five.
have 5. All right, 5. Sorry, 5. We have the SIAP, we have the PACU, the PAPSCU, the TEVSAVIL,
And the AXCU.
and the AXCU. All right, we're not updated in our research. So there are 5. Wow, thank you so much. I know that's a tall task working with all of these organizations under that, but we wish you all the best and luck. If there's anything we can do for Cocopeia, Doc, in our little way, please knock on our door and we will offer you whatever we have. Thank you so much, Prof. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. By the
Thank
way, I'm not the dean of Ateneo. I'm just a professor there.
You were my dean before. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate this, Doc. It's so nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Now we have a survivor, a person I admire, a person, a leader, an educational leader whose heart illuminates and inspires, and whose courage truly beats up any odds. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome the Regional Director of the National Capital Region, Dr. Virginia Acat. Is Dr. Acat there? All right. I think we have a little. All right.
No.
All right,
Okay.
Dr. Acat. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Doc. Please open your video. Can we?
Okay. Where's my video? You wait. Start video.
All right.
Okay.
There, we
Okay.
see you.
Yeah. Hello. Amazing afternoon to all my fellow educators, the different officials and leaders in education, our respected speakers for today. I am glad to know that we are all COVID affirmative. I would say COVID affirmative because the result of this COVID has really changed us tremendously. Let us see. We are now Christ-like. Now, we became, we act with so much humility now. We recognize the sufferings of Christ. We also are now very cooperative, and we tend to almost, follow all the 10 commandments of the Lord. Yeah. We are also very obedient, diba? Before, without this COVID, we seem to be hard-headed, but now we are becoming very obedient and law-abiding citizens. We also are very valuable now. We go for volunteerism. And with this activity that you are having this afternoon, we are more imaginative and creative to mitigate the issues brought about by this pandemic. And I would say also, we are very dutiful now to man, to God, and to our country. So COVID really has brought us positive things. We can already breathe fresh air. The fish, the frogs can already croak this time. I'm just surprised. We could see now grasshoppers. We could see birds chirping on top of our rooftops. No? And everybody is really getting adjusted. Yeah. So, my dear friends, I hope you are staying safe and healthy amidst these disruptions of this COVID pandemic. We are aware that it is not really easy for everybody, for all of us, for our families, for our students, for our parents and friends. Um, but I could see now that with all these disturbances, disruptions that we have become so resourceful. I could see that the educators now are making strategies and helping one another so that we can really combat these problems. I would like to tell you that the Commission on Higher Education remains steadfast in fulfilling our promise of education, quality education to our students, and a promise to our parents that these students will graduate with the quality performance. I am touched by the inspiring stories of all frontliners and all those who are really very active in combating this pandemic, the heroic acts of most of all. And we really have tremendous hopes and aspirations that our students, our parents, our faculty, and the administrators of schools will already be comforted that even this private organization being espoused by Madam Bryce Fabro is already of great help. It's already cautioning the tremendous disruptions, the anxiety that we are feeling regarding the perishing of our students and the schools who are now on the verge to close because most especially the private schools who can no longer pay their, their teachers because they cannot collect fees. And there are those who actually do not have students pa because of the disruptions in the schedule and the absence of physical enrollment and other problems brought about by this very difficult scenario. So we hope that our speakers today will again inspire us and give us more ideas on how to tackle these problems. I would like to end by saying, I am inspired by the book of Luke from chapter 19, verse 20, when he said, "A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." So let us now wake up. Let us now share whatever talents we have and whatever amenities we have to alleviate these pains of the pandemic. Thank you so much and mabuhay tayong lahat. Welcome to this brain sharing. Salamat po and God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful message. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. We'll see you again next Saturday. Thank you. All right. We now have we now come to the time where we have to prepare our notes, prepare our pens, because we will be learning a lot from our speakers. For the information of everyone in the room and those who are watching us in FB Live, our speaker today is the Global Head Talent Transformation at Wipro Digital Operations and Platforms. And he is known to be a thought leader of international repute in the HR and the L&D space. He has over 20 years of experience in various leadership roles in several leading IT and ITS organizations. Prior to joining Wipro, our speaker worked with HP, Microland, Computer Garage, and a few other organizations. He has an extensive experience in setting up and running learning and development functions for organizations in India and international locations. He has also he has led leadership development, capability building, and talent management efforts in various organizations. Some of the best in class initiatives led by him has received industry recognition as well. Our speaker speaks regularly in various national and international fora on topics related to HR, learning, and development. All right. Sorry, I got cut off there. All right. Anyway, um, he, let me say that again. He speaks regularly in various national and international fora on on topics related to HR, learning and development, corporate culture, and spirituality. He has spoken at conferences organized by CII, NHRDN, IIM, Bangalore World HRD Congress, World Education Congress, HR Tech World Congress, Southeast Asia Satsang, and other prestigious national and international organizations. His articles have also been published in various journals and magazines abroad and in India locally. He is in the editorial board of Ikakshara, a quarterly e-magazine of HR and L&D practitioners. Also, World HRD Congress has recognized our speaker as one of the top 25 most talented training and development leaders in the world. Moreover, Global Knowledge Management Congress has conferred the Knowledge Management Leadership Award on our speaker as well. And recently, Popular HR Human Factor featured him in their 2016 Best Human Resource Head in India. Ladies and gentlemen, my honor, my pleasure to present to you our resource speaker and co-advocate for the Brain Share, Mr. Surya Prakash Mohapatra.
Thank you, Dr. Bryce, for this wonderful introduction. Before I start, I just want to check, can you all hear me very well? Is my audio clear?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Okay. It's a great honor for me today to be part of this wonderful webinar. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this forum. This is a great forum of educators, academicians, intellectuals, and I definitely consider this to be a great privilege on my part to be part of this forum and then share some of my perspectives with you and exchange notes with you. Before I begin, I would like to have this disclaimer that I'm not an educator like you. I'm not an academician. I am a practitioner from the industry. I am a learning and development professional. And the fact that I have gathered the guts and courage to be part of this forum is my humble background as an L&D practitioner. And I believe there is a common thread between a learning and development professional in the industry or in a corporate organization and academicians and educators like you, because the common thread between both of us is learning. And our responsibility is to enable people to learn. While you work in the space where you enable students, the space that I belong to, where we enable the workforce. We facilitate learning, and while you facilitate learning, you disseminate knowledge so that the students can pass out of the university or the schools and contribute to the society. So your objective is to make an impact for the society, to the larger world. And the space that I'm working on is to enable our workforce to make to make a contribution, make an impact to the organization, to our customers, to our stakeholders, and to the larger society and the community. So that's the common thread that I can see between both of us. And that's why today I'm here with all of you. And I believe that I can bring in the perspective from the industry and then share with you what we are doing in the learning and development space. You may be able to relate to some of that, and I'm sure some of this would be more, maybe possibly could be an outside-in perspective for you. So the discussion that we are going to have today is about transforming schools, educational institutions, universities, etc., through our learning and development mindset. So I have a few. Can you see my presentation? I'm facing a bit of a challenge in bringing it up, and kind of running the slides in the platform. Just trying to see. Give me a second. For some reason, my slide is stuck. It's not moving. Just give me a second to figure out, how can I keep this going.
We see your first slide.
Yes, I'm not able to run the slides for some reason. Just trying to figure out what could be the problem.
All right. All right. we're trying to support you back end, Surya. You may go ahead. We'll try to catch up with your slides. We'll try to do the share screen from our end.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right. We'll catch
I
up.
think you
We'll catch
have,
up on this. We have
it looks
your
like it's,
presentation. Is it working now?
I think it's working now.
All right.
Can you see my slides now?
Yes, you can.
Wonderful. All right. My apologies for this technical glitches.
No problem.
I hope we'll be
All right.
back on the road. So thank you, Dr. Bryce, for this wonderful introduction and also setting the context about today's session. And today we're going to talk about how do we, what does it take to influence learning teams in our universities? How do we enable our learning teams? What can schools and universities do to manage expectations of their clients? We will talk a little bit about what are the expectations of our clients today in the universities and schools for primarily students and of course corporates and the industry, and why and how we need to reboot our URL paradigm, which is unlearning, learning, unlearning, and relearning. Let me start with a very important famous quotation by the evergreen Peter Drucker, the management guru, and he had shared his perspective on the education, on the university education. Peter Drucker in the year 1997, almost about 27 years, about 23 years ago, said something like this. He said, 30 years from now, the big university campuses will become relics. Universities won't survive. It is as large a change as when we first got the printed book. So when we first got the printed book, that was a major change in the history of education and the history of learning. And Peter Drucker says, 30 years from now, I mean, he said this in the year 1997, 30 years from now, these universities are probably not going to survive. But I think he was very clear. I think the inference from his statement, if you have to make an inference, I don't know whether it's going to be, does it mean the doomsday for universities or does it mean something else? Irrespective of his prediction, irrespective of what's the meaning or the essence behind what he wanted to say, one thing was very clear, that he indicated that universities and university education are heading for a crisis. They're heading for a crisis. And that's so reality today. I think his prediction is slowly coming true. The university education as a whole is facing a major crisis. But what's interesting about a crisis, the crisis could either be negative or it could be positive. The crisis could mean the end of something, or it could mean the beginning of a new era, a beginning of a new world, beginning of revolutionizing change. So as we get into this webinar and as we get ready for the new era, for the new world, I very strongly believe that this crisis means a new opportunity for all of us. While crisis could mean getting into a tailspin, it could also mean a great opportunity. As the industries, organizations, corporates, governments are getting ready for the new opportunity, our universities also need to get ready for the new opportunity. Before we talk about the new opportunity, let's understand the crisis a little bit more. And before we talk about the crisis, let's understand what are the trends which are impacting university education today. What are the external factors? What's happening in our economy, in the industry, in the society, in the world, which are impacting education? So, my dear friends, gig economy is becoming the order of the day. The economy, the industry, the businesses are slowly moving away from a scenario where employees were working full time. They had full time employment. The gig economy is bringing new opportunities for everyone. It's the economy of freelancers, contract employees, employees who work for multiple employers at the same time, entrepreneurs, the startup guys who are setting up new businesses. It's creating opportunities for everyone. The gig economy is the order of the day. That's posing challenges for universities as well as for the industry. But that's a new reality. Knowledge is fast becoming obsolete. Our university education, which probably was designed for the 19th century, needs to be ready for the 20th century, the 21st century. It needs to be ready for the new world, because we'll have to keep in mind that knowledge is fast becoming obsolete. 50% of the jobs that exist today are not going to exist 20 years from now. So what are we preparing our present generation for? Are we preparing them for jobs that are not going to exist in some time? That's the reality. Knowledge is fast becoming obsolete. The knowledge that we acquired in our university, through our education, we don't use that. I mean, I, as a professional today, use a very small percentage of the knowledge that I got through my degree. The knowledge that I use today is something that I acquired over the last couple of decades. The knowledge that our present generation and the future generation are going to use tomorrow do not exist today. They're going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years. That's the current situation. Organizations today value skills over qualification. Top 15 companies, if you go to the next slide, very clearly have announced that they're not going to look at qualification. That is, they have not seen any credible linkage between qualification and the real world performance and the requirements they have. Google and Apple are the companies who are among these top 15 who have announced that they're not going to look at qualification anymore. That possibly could be a big threat for the university education program. Alternate modes of learning are available today. The future is self-directed learning. The future is about the learner taking ownership of his or her learning. It's largely going to be self-directed. Many industries and products are going to become things of the past. They're going to become obsolete. They're going to become extinct. The education that we're imparting today to cater to the needs of such industries and products may become obsolete and things of the past as well. Technology shifting the balance of power, putting knowledge at the center stage. So technology has shifted the balance of power today. Power in the past rested with the influential. It rested with politicians. It rested with the wealthy industrialists. But today, power rests with the one who has knowledge. That's the shift that we're going to see. That's the shift that we've already started seeing. We are fortunately or unfortunately living through times of accelerated change. Change always happened in the past. Change is nothing new. Change happened through the ages of the caveman all the way up to the age of the astronaut. The caveman also saw change. The astronaut who flew to the space is also seeing change. But the degree of change, the pace at which change is happening today is humongous. It's unparalleled in history. We haven't seen that kind of change in the past. The change that happened in the last 1 decade probably has not happened in the last century. So that's the pace at which things are changing. Adding to that complexity, the attention span of learners is reducing. And a lot of research has established that learners today cannot pay attention for more than 7 minutes. And some learners even have a shorter attention span. That's making us difficult for educators and learning and development professionals like us to design programs which can grab the attention of our learners, which can be engaging, which can be relevant, and which can grab the attention of our learners. Dr. Bryce, are you controlling my slides or? Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right. So this is the list of the 15 companies
Yes,
who have announced they're not going to look at qualification anymore.
that's right.
They are now interested in skills, proficiency, and competency over qualification. And they have removed qualification from their selection process. And you can see some very interesting names there: Google and Apple and Starbucks, Bank of America, IBM, and so on. As we move on and move on, let's move on. Yes. So let's take a deep look at the current challenges. What are we grappling with? What's the university education is grappling with? And this is largely a global phenomenon, but this is not the crisis. The challenges I'm going to talk about now are not necessarily consistent across all countries. So some countries may have got better control over the challenges. Some might be struggling. Some might be coming to terms with the challenges, but they are consistently there across the globe. I'm sorry, not consistently there, but they're there. They're omnipresent, but the degree of their prevalence probably would vary from one geography to another. But most of our education systems across the globe, quality is still is a concern. Quality of education is still a concern. Quantity is covered, where we still follow the old model of the manufacturing era, where thousands of people, thousands of students come to the university, go through in a format which is more like an assembly line and a manufacturing setup, and they go through a very structured, formal education system, and they come out of it with degrees, and they pay for those degrees, and they get those degrees at the end of their education. Sometimes I think what's missing is education. What's missing is quality. In many of our universities and schools, the focus on rote learning is still there. The pattern recognition, rather than learning through application, is missing. And that's why most of the organizations, corporates, industry organizations repeatedly keep saying that the people, the students, the university churn out are not employable. That's a common challenge across the globe. Probably about 10% or less than 10% of students who graduate from universities are employable, unfortunately. That's a stark reality. Many of our educational institutions lack quality faculty members. Unfortunately, our curriculum has not kept pace with the change. We are at the fourth industrial revolution, and Industrial Revolution 1 started with the steam engine. Industrial Revolution 2 definitely saw evolution of gas, petrochemicals, etc. And Industrial Revolution 3, where we saw computers, we saw networking devices, electronics, and so on. And in Industrial Revolution today is all about Internet of Things, digital, and the difference between, or you can say the digital and the physical and the biological and emotional, everything has converged today in the fourth industrial revolution. The skills required during the fourth industrial revolution are very different from the skills that were required in Industrial Revolution 3. The skills which were required at Industrial Revolution 3 were very different from the skills that were required required during Industrial Revolution 2. So essentially what I'm trying to say, the skills required today are very, very different from the skills that we needed in the past. And we cannot win this battle with the skills of the past. We cannot solve the problems of today and tomorrow with the techniques of yesterday. We need to keep pace with the change. Like industry has evolved every 20 to 25 years or 30 years, our university education need to evolve at a fairly accelerated pace. Our curriculum needs to keep pace with the change. But unfortunately, for whatever reasons, we have not been able to do that. Again, pardon me for saying this. Once again, this is not the case everywhere. There are universities which have moved ahead and kept pace with the change. And there are universities, there are schools which are trying, they're struggling. There are probably a few others who are behind. My intention is not to generalize this, but my intention is to talk about some of the challenges largely we are facing today. Lack of research and academic institution, that's a challenge. I think research and academic institution, and most of the Asian countries, I think the Western countries have moved ahead in the research space, but I think we are definitely lagging behind in Asian countries, where the research and educational institution is still lagging behind. We need to catch up. Lack of motivation in taking risks. The university setup, the setup in our schools are more structured and formal. But as the students step out of the education system and then move into the real world, they're very different. And what they have to deal with as they step out of their education system is something called the VUCA world, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And an education program which is preparing them for comfortable jobs is little away from the reality of the industry or the real world, where they're actually going to step in and then start working, or maybe start running businesses, etc. Unfortunately, students across the globe pay for a degree and not for education. That's a change that we need to drive. So as we move on, yes, so as we move on to the next, so now let's talk about what are students expecting from us. I think this is important. One of the agenda items for today's discussion is how do we understand and meet the expectations of our clients? And our clients are our students. What do they expect from us? They expect a few things from us. First and foremost, if you move to the next slide, they expect personalization. And are we ready for that? Personalization is all about, can I receive education which is designed for my needs? not for 49 other students, co-learners in the classroom, is can you provide me learning which is personalized to my needs, to my pace, to my requirement, to my career aspirations. Next one is flexibility. The question is, can universities provide me education which gives me a great deal of flexibility? Many students today are going to be working and studying at the same time. Some of them might be studying full-time and working full-time, not necessarily working and studying part-time. So is the education flexible enough? Is the university prepared to provide me flexible education where I can learn at my pace, at my speed, at my convenience, any place, and so on? And the next one, adaptability. So it's not just providing me personalized education, but also can the education adapt to my pace? Can it adapt to my strengths and limitations? If I learn faster, can it enable me to learn faster? If I am a slow learner, can it slow down for me? That's what adaptability is all about. Next one. Can you provide me technology-enabled curriculum? Curriculum, absolutely. Today, all of you would say, hey, Surya, we all have technology-enabled curriculum. But what I mean here is something different. Can you provide me a curriculum which is entirely technology-enabled, where I don't have to come to the university campus? I can be at my home or at my office and complete an entire program which is enabled by technology. Most universities probably a few days ago, a few months ago would have said, not possible. You need interaction with your professor face-to-face. You need to interact with your peers face-to-face, and so on. But now with the COVID-19 crisis, the experience has taught us something different. And there are, I know for sure, universities who have already started putting their might together to design an entire curriculum which can be offered online. Entire program, an MBA program or a master's degree program, which can completely be enabled through technology. The next one is about purpose. Will my university or my education system help me find my purpose? Or will it enable me meet my purpose? Or is it just going to make me employment ready? Are it just going to give me a degree which I can carry with me to find a job for myself? Or is the university capable of providing me or helping me find my purpose or help me meet my purpose if I already have one? So, as you can see here, these are, if we move to the next slide, these are the 5 building blocks. These are the 5 blocks which represent expectations of our client. They want education which is flexible, which is adaptable, which is tech-enabled, which is personalized, and which enables me to meet my purpose. That's the university of the future. And the students, our customers, our clients have one more expectation. They know that in the near future, every possible job will be taken away by technology, by machines. Every possible job on the earth probably can be done by machines. That's going to happen in the near predictable future. Now the students are expecting, can you teach me something what machines cannot do? if you teach me something that machines can do, you're not going to do me a great service, because anyway, machines will take away that job. But can you teach me something what machines can't do? So these are the expectations of our customers, of our clients, the students. So as we move on, my dear friends, if you can quickly use the chat window and then let me know in the next 30 seconds or so, how do you feel? Are you feeling optimistic or pessimistic about the future? If you can use the chat window and then just share your thoughts. I paused for a few seconds to hear from you. How do you feel? Dr. Bryce, you may have
Feeling
to
optimistic.
help me by reading out a few responses.
Yes, Surya, we have Harvey here saying optimistic, optimistic from Paula Bianca, optimistic from Rona. Arlene is feeling optimistic. Everything I see here is optimistic, Mr. Surya. So we have the hope in the future. Everyone's still there. Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Right. Thank you,
Wonderful. I think
Miss
all
Ruby.
of us know that we are heading for
Everyone
challenging
is
times,
optimistic.
but we are
Mhm.
optimistic. That shows the resilience of this community, our ability to bounce back, our ability, our resilience, our power of resilience is unparalleled. And that's what we saw when the COVID-19 crisis hit us badly. Most of the educational institutions, universities across the globe, within no time, switched to online education. Within no time. That's the kind of resilience that we have. So we understand today that we are going through difficult times. We understand that these are challenging times. We understand that university education is passing through a crisis. We understand the whole society, the country, and the world at large is grappling with different kind of crisis. We live in a VUCA world, but these are at the same time exciting times. These are interesting times, though they are challenging times. So that's the characteristics of our of this community, and that gives me a lot of confidence that we can move ahead. Now let's talk about the change. And I'm not going to talk about change in the education sector, which is happening. I'm going to talk about the change which is happening in the learning and development space in the industry, because that's where I belong to. I have my experience there. I will talk about it. I will probably then ask you to reflect on the similarities. And if you find similarities, and if you can relate to some of the changes I'm talking about, do you see that happening in the university education space? So this is where we are moving towards in the corporate space, in the industry, as far as learning and development is concerned. We are moving away from open enrollment, calendarized training programs in organizations to learning journeys. Learning journeys are designed to give them an elongated experiential learning path where they can go through a series of interventions, experiences, opportunities to get engaged with their peers, their mentors, and subject matter experts, get opportunity for coaching and mentoring, opportunity to work on projects and assignments, of course, some or a few classroom sessions in between through the journey, but largely this is going to be experiential. It's going to be learning by doing. That's a shift that we're going to see, or we have started seeing in the L&D space in the corporates. I'm going to share with you an example of a bank in India. The bank recruits probationary officers as the new recruits, the first-time managers into the bank. And this bank has a very interesting new manager onboarding program. And that program runs for about 6 months. And as this new managers join this bank, they are immediately asked to go to a suburb, which is more like the the the, the outliers or the the small villages or towns of a metropolitan city like Mumbai. And so they are sent to those small towns or villages um, in the outskirts of Mumbai or other metropolitan cities in India, and they're asked to go there, live there for 6 months. They go there in batches of about 10 or 15, and they're told to solve a problem in that village. That's the onboarding program the new managers go through in that bank. No formal training program, no classroom session, no daily briefing and debriefing. They're given an assignment. They're asked to go to a village in the outskirts or the suburbs of Mumbai city, and they're asked to go there and solve a problem. Bankers were supposed to work in banks, going through and the balance sheets and the ledger, and then going through the history of their customers, engaging with customers day in and day out. They go to a village and then they try and solve the problem of that village. And they stay there for 4 to 6 months. They come back after 6 months and they give the report to their seniors in the bank. They have revolutionized the way they do leadership development in their organization. So corporates are moving away from open enrollments to learning journeys, from topic-driven education to business need-driven training. So education, the learning programs in corporates are mostly designed to meet the needs and the priorities of the organizations. As an L&D leader for my organization, I need to demonstrate ROI, return on investment of every program. That's the accountability that I have as a learning and development leader for my organization. It's about accountability of the learning and development professionals. In the past, my accountability was about the quality of programs that I create, the number of people I train. But today, my accountability is the business impact that I create. Our learning programs in corporates are moving away from formal training programs to a mix of formal and informal trainings. We're moving away from dissemination of concepts and knowledge to demonstrable change in skills and behaviors. From generally a low-tech approach, which was largely instructor-led in the past, we are moving to online, social, mobile, chatbot, and so on to enable learning. So we are from being generally low-tech organizations today are highly high-tech when it comes to learning. Managers in the past did not play an important role. They had a very passive role in the development journey of their team members. Today, managers in organizations are actively involved and interested in the development of their colleagues and team members. From minimal measurements in the past, which were about training throughput, training coverage, training participation, training feedback, etc., we have moved to significant measurement in terms of behavior change, business impact, impact on the top line, impact on the bottom line, impact on employee turnover, etc. Very clearly measurable business metrics. That's where the learning and development function in corporates are moving towards. I would pause for 30 seconds and ask you this question. Do you relate to what I'm sharing with you? Is there any similarity between the L&D function in corporates and what we do in universities and schools? Your response in the chat window, please.
Can we ask the question again, Mr. Surya?
Yeah, my question was, so what I shared with you is the shift that we are seeing in the L&D space in the corporates. My question was, do you see any relationship with that, between that and what you are doing in universities? Is there a shift? Are you seeing a shift happening in the universities and schools?
All right. I see a yes, sir, from Shira, a yes from Mr. Randy Nico, of course, a yes from our dear president from Olaf, Dr. Maida. Yes, there is. Yes from Cyrus, from Jonathan, Antonio, Darwin, all of them is a yes.
Fantastic. So which is again a positive sign that we are making the shift. If you go back to the slides, then you can see I put some dots there which would tell you where exactly the industry is today. The industry is still pretty much on the left side of the spectrum, making an attempt to move to the right. I'm assuming that in the universities also you're making that journey from the left to the right. In the industry, the L&D function is not yet there. It's making that journey, but that's a very clear intent to get there. As we move on, there are other changes that we're making. If you move to the next slide, you can see some more interesting changes. And these changes are significant paradigm shift. And we talked about the paradigm shift. We talked about the shift in the mindset. And this is where the mindset shift is happening. The mindset shift is for L&D function, which used to be a support function and then became an enabling function. Enabler of strategies is today is a strategy accelerator. So L&D function is looking at itself is accelerator of organizational strategy. If organization has a vision to get somewhere in the next 10 years, L&D believes that it can be the key accelerator of the organizational strategy by understanding the future needs and then by building organizational capability to drive the organization there to its destination, towards vision. So building organizational capability to meet organizational objectives. That's the key. So it's not about just being an enabler, because in today's world, the key enabler is capability. Organizations are striving to become learning organizations. Organizations which learn faster than their competition stay ahead of the curve. And who can enable them to stay ahead of the curve? It's the L&D function. And I can see the relationship with university education. It's the responsibility of the university education to provide education to students who can meet the societal objectives, objectives of the nation, objectives, the vision of the country, the vision of the industry, and so on. Are we creating value there? As universities, have we become strategy accelerators or not? Is a question mark. But that's the mindset shift that we need to make. L&D, learning and development function in organizations, the old paradigm was provide high quality service, high quality content. But today, they look at themselves as not service providers, not quality service providers. That's a given. You have to do that. but your role had changed, significantly transformed and enhanced as proactive influencers. L&D professionals and educators always take pride in the fact that they're creators of great quality content. But today, content is accessible anywhere and everywhere. So L&D is looking at itself today as content curators. Can we understand the needs of our people and curate relevant, right content and direct people to the right content? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start from the scratch. From defined structured learning, we are moving towards a culture of continuous learning, because the future is going to be lifelong learning. It's not about one degree or one qualification. Can L&D functions and can universities be the champions of lifelong learning? From trainers, instructors, teachers, we are becoming facilitators of learning and facilitators of learning networks. And one thing that we have realized in organizations very well is whether we provide them quality learning or not, they are going to find out avenues for learning, because today learning is accessible to anyone. Learning is not the property of the best universities today. Learning is accessible to everybody, to the last mile. So our job is to facilitate learning networks, facilitate learning, enable people to collaborate with each other, create the ecosystem where employees and students can reach out to each other, reach out to subject matter experts, be part of these learning networks, and leverage the opportunities to learn. They are going to learn anyways. And instead of becoming stumbling blocks in the learning process, we can become facilitators. We can become enablers. From teaching skills, our shift is teaching towards teaching effective learning habits. And if you inculcate learning habits in people, they would take care of themselves. From set content, we're moving to dynamic content. Content which is dynamic, changing. Technology is changing every now and then. A new version of the same technology coming in a span of a few days or weeks. Business models are emerging every now and then. So content is dynamic, not set content. We are moving away from training events to learning journeys, from information silos to connected information. That's the shift that we're making in the L&D space, in the corporates, in the industry. And the reason I shared this slide, I thought this could be a perspective from the industry which you may be able to relate to from university education perspective. As we move on, is about driving away the fixed mindset and bringing in the growth mindset, which is the mindset of agility to drive change in universities and organizations. And as educators and academicians, I'm sure that you are aware of fixed mindset and growth mindset. Fixed mindset is the thought process where we believe that everybody is born with some intelligence and we cannot make significant change to them. And things are the way they are and we cannot make a change. The growth responsibility the growth mindset is a winner's mindset, where I believe that people can be developed, their intellect can be developed, our mindset can change. We can change our world. We can change the conditions that we live in. We can take the accountability for changing things. We are not at the mercy of people who are around us and who control us. So we are not at the mercy of anyone. We can take the accountability of driving change ourselves. That's what growth mindset is all about. And that growth mindset is going to be the key driver of change in our university education and in our corporate organizations as well. And that key mindset of change is going to be that of flexibility, adaptability, agility, innovation, creativity. And for us to become successful in the new world, we would need higher order thinking. The lower order thinking of the past, of the previous industrial ages, will not help us. We would definitely need the higher order thinking to inculcate learning agility within ourselves, within the learning and development community. Here are the top 10 future skills, skills which are relevant today and tomorrow for educators and learning and development professionals. The first one, interestingly, is empathy. And it sounds very interesting when we say that educators and learning and development professionals first and foremost need to develop empathy. And sometimes in some of the seminars where I have talked about it, some of these fellow participants have challenged me saying, hey, we are supposed to have empathy. But this 10 skills that I'm sharing with you is a finding of the research that I have done across several organizations. And the first and foremost that came out as a glaring need on the part of L&D practitioners, learning facilitators, is empathy. So that's clearly an area of opportunity where we need to improve. Our ability to influence and persuade. Performance consulting, whether you are in the L&D, you are an L&D leader in a corporate, or you are a learning or you are an academician or an educator or a professor in an university, are we performance consultants? Are we driving results for organizations, for industry, for country? Our ability to cope with ambiguity. The future is all about ambiguity. Do you have the skills to deal with that ambiguity? Connecting with the generation, Gen Next, connecting with the millennials, connecting with the new generation. Is our education system geared to the needs and the tastes and the preferences of millennials? Are we inculcating creative thinking and innovation? Are we good at data analytics? Future is all about data. It's going to be data. When the machines are going to rule the future, the machines will be fed with tons and tons and tons of data, which will enable them to take decisions. And are we leveraging data analytics to understand the tastes and preferences of our learners, understand the effectiveness of our programs, understand the needs of students in future? Are we doing enough? Understanding of the business ecosystem and business acumen. Machine learning. My dear friends, today we are teaching students, but tomorrow we may have to teach machines as well. In an ecosystem where men and machines are going to work together, we need to make sure that we teach both men, women, and machines. So that's another area of opportunity and another skill that we need to develop. Our ability to use the technology and digital platforms. These are top 10 future skills of educators and professors, academicians, and learning and development practitioners. We will move on. We are almost towards the fag end of this webinar before we open it up for the Q&A. But as we move on to the next slide, and the next slide, you know this famous personalities, the great business tycoons from across the globe. And one common thing among all of them, where none of them have a university degree. They're all school dropouts, but they were extremely, extremely successful in becoming business tycoons, icons of business and industry. This tells us something very profound, that to become successful, we require skills and competencies far more than what we learn in the university. And this itself is a big challenge to the university educators, that what is it that we need to bring into our education program, which would enable people to learn what they need to learn to become successful in the real world. As we move on, we will talk about how we can make a difference. And where we lack today is our inability to help people to think. We do not do enough to develop the ability of our students to think. We do not do enough to build ability to deal with failure, ability to deal with ambiguity, ability to tolerate the frustration of ambiguity. And since I come from the industry and I'm a practitioner myself, the difference that I have seen between education and then what we do in the industry is pretty interesting. In the education program, the problem is fairly structured. And if you follow a structured path, you can find the solution. You have the problem and you understand, you know how to find the solution to the problem in a structured manner. But in the corporate world, in the industry, the life is very different. The challenge is not about the solution. The challenge in the corporate world is about finding the problem, is about defining the problem, is about understanding the problem. That's where the challenge is. That's the big difference between the university education and what the industry needs. We need people who can define the problem very well. And if they can define the problem, they and their colleagues can find solutions. But finding the problem is the biggest challenge in corporates today. Ability to influence, emotional intelligence, and ability to love. And at the beginning, I said, students expect universities to teach them what the machines can't teach. Some of these qualities are the ones that machines can't teach. Machines can't do. Machines can't love. Machines don't have emotional intelligence. Machines cannot influence. Machines do not know how to deal with failure. So if you can teach these qualities, we can definitely make a big difference. Now we go to the last slide, which is all about how can we step up the game. We can step up the game by bringing in experiential learning, getting our students dirty their hands. Look at the system in Germany when they go to the class for 2 days and the remaining 4 days, 3 or 4 days there on the shop floor, learning by doing, by dirtying the hands. We can stop spoon feeding the students. We can teach them to fish, take away the safe environment, create an opportunity for them to fail, because the world outside is filled with octopuses and crocodiles. So they must know how to fail and how to deal with failure before they meet failure and deal with failure in the real world. Multidisciplinary education, common curriculum, building hybrid skills is the need of the future. If I give the example of Google has come up with a device which can read the retina of a human eye and tell the human being whether that person is going to have cancer in the next 6 months. Imagine the power that that device brings in. It can read the retina of a human eye and then can tell that human being whether he or she is going to have cancer in the next 6 months. But the message I'm trying to convey here is the machine which can do that. Who would have created that machine? A doctor or a technology expert? Probably somebody who understands both, was good at medicine, also good at technology. So this is the age of multidisciplinary education. Economists, students of economics needs to understand technology. Students of technology needs to learn business, and so on. Provide faculty members a stint in the industry. get them industry exposure. Define accountability. Let's create measurable metrics for academics as well as for L&D functions in the corporates. That would step up the game. With this, we can move to the last slide and the next slide, please. As we begin the journey, we can see two paths leading in two different directions. One takes us to mediocrity, another takes us to excellence. We have to choose between these two. There is no third path. There is no alternative. And at the end, before I conclude, I would like to bring up a very famous quotation by a spiritual guide, and his name is Sri Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra. And he has said something very, very profound about education. We'll move to the next slide. The next slide, please. Yes, this is what Sri Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra, the spiritual guide, has said about education. And he says, systemic organization of habits and instincts with a purpose of fulfilling the becoming of life by a graduated active manipulation of behavior may be called education. A very, very profound message about the true meaning of education, which is not about physics or chemistry, economics or business, but is about organization of habits and instincts with the purpose of fulfilling the becoming of life by active manipulation of behavior. That's what education is all about. With this, I will bring my narrative to an end and open it up for questions if you have any.
Truly rich, truly wonderful and powerful. Thank you so much, Mr. Soria. Thank you, Soria. Appreciate this. It's refreshing to have an HR practitioner in the webinar room. We've been talking about technology for the past many weeks. And as an HR person myself, I am just resonating with all of these powerful thoughts and insights that you have shared. It's understanding the purpose. It's unschooling so that they can definitely find their purpose eventually. So a lot of things. Wonderful. A lot of takeaways. Before we proceed though to the question and answer, I'd like to run a poll for everyone. Everyone is very engaged. I love all of this thoughts shared by our participants, our brain sharers in the room. Here's the poll now. There's just two questions. Please join in, be part of this. First question in the poll is, what do students pay for in your university? Is it the degree or education? Just click one. Number two, are our universities designed for the new millennium? What do you think? Is it a yes or a no? We're running the poll right now, and then we'll try to see how our brain sharers are thinking. Time to think and share, brain sharers. All right, are we counting? Please, there's a screen for the poll. Are they participating? Yes, all right, good. Good. Wonderful. We will show you the result of the poll in a while. But yes, I'd like to open the Q&A for the next 10 minutes. In the interest of time, we would be choosing questions that may not, we try to like avoid redundant questions. So just prioritize those questions that will direct us to the discussions that we have right now. Who has the first question? Good. Maybe I'll start, Surya, while waiting for the others. You mentioned about teaching effective habits, right? Teaching effective habits. This is a shift. You mentioned this when you were talking about the old and the new. Can you tell us more about this? I'm interested to to be enlightened on the teaching effective habits.
Yes, I think uh, today there is plethora of content
Mhm.
and information that's available. And a lot of time we spend by creating more content.
Mhm.
But today's generation is they have access to content and information and they can learn themselves. But the question is, are they learning enough? And then we see three kinds of people in organizations: people who are intrinsically motivated to learn, they learn for the sheer pleasure and passion of learning, and they are not really tempted by any reward or anything. But they are a small percentage, and there is a large percentage of people, majority of them in organizations. Research findings says about 80% or more people who are extrinsically motivated to learn. They learn for the sake of a reward. They learn if they think they're going to get a promotion, or they're going to get a better pay, or or if they think they're not going to learn something, they might lose something. They might have the risk of losing their job, or their career might get slowed down. So they always look for an external motivation, either a reward or a risk, which drives their learning. The third category of people are a small percentage of people, no matter um, you know what happens, they are not interested in learning. They're disinterested because of the way they have been groomed since their childhood, their outlook towards life, etc. So as L&D professionals and educators, we don't have to do anything for people who are intrinsically motivated, because they love learning. They learn for the passion of learning. But we need to do something about people who are extrinsically motivated and people who are completely demotivated in learning. We need to bring that natural, spontaneous learning habit in them, develop that passion towards learning for them. We need to spend time in understanding their temperament, what holds them back, whether it is attitude towards life, or it's something else. So I'll share with you a very interesting example where Satya Nadella took over as the CEO of Microsoft. One of the things that he believed that his organization had developed a culture which is not in the interest of his organization. He felt that most people in the organization most people in his organization had a I know it all attitude. He said, we need to change this. We need to change this to a I learn it all attitude. He said, we need to drive an I learn it all culture in the organization. And he says, and the turnaround that Satya Nadella drove in Microsoft, he attributes this culture shift to a great extent. So I think it's all about making that shift that I need to learn. I need to learn all. I probably know something, but I need to know more. I need to learn more. I need to learn all. So that's something that we need to drive. There is no one standard approach. There are different approaches. You know, some of this has to be by leaders who set examples themselves, the leaders who champion learning in the organizations, which will encourage other people to learn. Leaders who become coaches and trainers and teachers themselves will set examples for leaders below them and so on. And coaching and mentoring and then creating this peer networks, learning networks, rewarding knowledge champions in organizations. These are various activities which can drive a culture of learning, which can inculcate learning habits in people. There's
Wonderful.
no one single approach. Is going to be a combination of many of them.
Wonderful.
Did I answer
I
your question?
Yes, yes. most definitely. I love that. I love the from charlatan, I know it all, to I learned it all. Right? That's wonderful. I'm gonna teach that to my kids. I learned it all. Attitude. All right. We have a lot of questions right now at the chat Q&A box. First question from Melin Jean Mendoza. At the present situation of the different parts of the world, how can we facilitate learning and engage the learners in in a hands-on activity?
Dr. Bryce, I would request to repeat that. I could not hear parts of the question
Right. If
very
you
well.
can open your Q&A, Surya, it's there as well, so you can help me out with the
Okay.
question. All right. Is there the question from? I've lost it. Oh, it's in the answered. All right. At the present situation of the different parts of the world, how can we facilitate learning and engage the learners in a hands-on activity?
Okay, okay. All right.
Mhm.
I think that's a great question. It's a challenge. It's
Mhm.
definitely a challenge for educators to engage in a hands-on activity. So, in my opinion, learning has to be, in the present scenario, has to be a combination of offline and online. And some of the deliberation can be online, and some of the assignments and activities can be offline, where the students work on their own
Mhm.
um, outside the classroom, and they get some practical experience. That's one example. Second is, now technology is very powerful. Now technology also brings in opportunities where students can also be engaged in action learning. So one example of technology is AR, VR, augmented reality and virtual reality. These technologies actually can um, give opportunities for experiential learning. So today, students who actually come to a campus to work in a lab can also learn in a virtual lab. It may not be exactly the same look and feel of the real lab in the campus, but to a great extent, augmented reality and virtual reality can give the feel of a real lab to a great extent.
Mhm.
Some of these technologies are fairly expensive today, but they will become commoditized in the near future and will be accessible to universities and organizations. But this is possible. If you're interested, we can talk more about it offline.
Wonderful. Those questions, thank you, Surya. Thank you for that question as well. Those questions that we will not be answering here, we definitely will answer on the chat box. I will be requesting our dear resource person to help us with the questions. We will be helping you. I find this question from Joy Garner very interesting, and I'd like to ask it directly to you, Surya. Shifting from face to face to flexible learning or full online learning, how can we encourage our students and faculty members to appreciate the education shift of delivery?
Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, that's an interesting question. And how can we appreciate that shift?
Mhm.
Well, our students and our educators are in different phases of the journey. Some are resilient enough to shift quickly. They're agile enough to shift quickly. Others will take time. Um, so there'll be probably three kinds of people who would be people who are agile, and they'll be early, not just early adopters, they will also be champions of new technology and the new way of learning. The second category would be early adopters who will
Mhm.
wait for the change, and when the change happens, they will also quickly move over. And the third category of people will remain in a state of denial. They would say COVID-19 will go away in the next few weeks and we'll go back to the old way of learning, old way of doing business, old way of engaging with our customers, with our teachers, with our colleagues, and so on. But that's not going to happen. The reality is the new world is going to be very different. So we need to have different strategies for different people. And so it's the typical change management strategy and the management of change that we drive as leaders, as organization development, organization behavior practitioners. Some of you drive that behavior change in organizations. We need to use the same strategy. It's a combination of strategies. Sometimes it's a combination of it is a peer pressure, create early success stories, demonstrate to the rest of the world, create pilots in one area, show the success to people in other areas. It's one way of doing it. Coaching plays a very important role. People who are in a state of denial will require a lot of coaching and mentoring to get out of that state of denial, move through the phases of resistance, go to the phase of exploration and commitment. Different people are in different stages of the journey. There is no one size fits all approach. You will have to understand your students, understand your audience, and then have different approach for different students who are in different stages and phases of this journey. And I think all of us are going to play important role in driving that change. In spite of our best efforts, there'll still be some people who will not change, but they would have difficult times.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, our poll results is here. What do students pay for our universities today? 44% of our audience said degree, 61% says education.
The
Our
community is divided, Dr. Bryce.
Say that again, please.
I said the community is divided on their
Yes,
opinion.
that's right. That's right. Of course, the second question, are our universities designed for the new millennium? 57% says yes, 48% says no. All right. Two more questions and we will definitely wrap up for the Q&A. This is interesting. A question, it's a personal question from Pressy. She asked, what is the best thing that we should do as instructors in the university to shift from the old to the new?
Okay, what is the best thing we can do as instructors? Well, I think the best thing for us instructors would be to take the lead, not wait for the system to change, not wait for your the management or the leadership to change, but be the driver of change yourself. And whatever is in your control, whatever is within your circle of influence that, be the change yourself that you want to see in the world. So, and then also try to influence the students to adapt and embrace, influence your peers, influence your university leaders to, to drive the change. But the first thing that we need to do, the most important thing that we need to do is drive the change ourselves. And the best way to do that would be to to take ourselves out of our comfort zone. And each one of us has a comfort zone. We prefer teaching in a particular manner. We prefer disseminating knowledge in a particular manner. But I think we should try out, experiment, take risks, fail if, and don't be afraid of failing, and take ourselves out of our comfort zone. Experiment something that we're not very comfortable experimenting, but do it. That's the best thing that we can do as instructors, as trainers and teachers.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, we're down to our last question. Again, may I inform everyone, those who put all their questions under the Q&A, we will answer. We will be requesting our resource person to personally answer your questions. If it has something to do with technology and all of this, I have to skip it. We have webinars that can support this kind of answer, and would love to share this with you in the succeeding webinars that we have. We'll just want to concentrate on the learning and development at this particular time. All right. The last question that I want to ask from our participants is, from Maida Sarmiento. She asked if it is more on higher order of thinking skills. How can we do the assessment of our students' participation? This will be our last question.
Okay. Okay. High order skills, and how do we do the assessment? So yeah, the assessment for the high order skills cannot be the conventional assessments, cannot be the conventional multiple choice and other assessments that we use. So high order thinking is about critical thinking, is about creative thinking, is about agile thinking, and so on. And then I think a lot of that has to be practical assessment. While there are instruments which are available today, different psychometric and other assessment instruments which are available to gauge some of that. And then we can definitely take advantage of them. But personally, I think a lot of these assessments need to be through experiential learning and looking at outcomes of the experience that, or the assignments, the projects, the tasks that we give to our students. And it has to be the real outcomes, the real business outcomes, the real impact that we create in the process. And then some of that is possible when we create that opportunity through our programs, where people can apply their thinking and then create these outcomes. So to me, it definitely, this has to be experiential, action learning best. Of course, we can use instruments, scientifically designed instruments which are available, but more so, I think, to see the real outcome of critical thinking, high order thinking, is the impact that our students create. And something that we try to gauge in organizations is the impact that our employees and colleagues create at the end of a training program.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Before I let you go, do you have any parting shot? Do you have a final message to all our participants, to all our brain sharers in the room?
Well, the final message is, I think, as all of you said, the future is optimistic and exciting. Even though we are going through challenging times, the future is absolutely exciting. Great opportunities for all of us who are willing, ready, and prepared to reimagine ourselves for the new world. All of us know that the world today and tomorrow is going to be a new world. And for us to succeed in that new world, we'll have to reimagine ourselves, reinvent ourselves, reinvent the way we work, we communicate, we educate. I think that's going to be the key. And my message to all of you is to make that small attempt to reimagine who you are, to reimagine that the value that you bring in, to reimagine the function that you engage in, reimagine and reinvent. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to have learned from your wellspring of insights and experience, 20 years of being in that space. Thank you so much for allowing us to learn from you and for allowing us to know you in this level. Thank you so much, Surya. Appreciate the heart that you've
Thank
extended.
you very much for this opportunity. I'm really honored and privileged and thankful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyway, we have a friend who'd like to tell us some good news. I'd like to call our Career Futurist Officer, Ms. Lera, to tell us more about the Brain Share School.
Hello, everybody. All right. So, hello, Brain Sharers. I'm Lara, and I'm the Career Futurist Officer of Rise Inspired Careers. And I'm very excited to be sharing a bit about Brain Share School. So, let's start. All right. So, what is Brain Share School? It is a self-leadership post-COVID and networking program. All right. It is a virtual class for global education leaders who aspire to update, recalibrate, and create linkages for solutions. All right. But how does BrainShare School work? So BrainShare School offers monthly virtual summits led by phenomenal global leaders from various disciplines and industries. Weekly live webinar classes, done for you workbook templates, on-demand videos, networking, and linking platforms. All training is online inside a private BrainShare School member-only app. Students can view the training videos, connect with others, and compare notes with co-brain shares. And here are the interactive components of BrainShare School. So we have live consulting call, 1 year free hero membership, and a lifetime access of the networking platform. Finally, what's the investment? The investment for BrainShare School is $500. We also offer a payment plan for 5 monthly payments of $100. When you invest in your own education through BrainShare School, you're also helping One School PH, a hero advocacy supporting to bring online education to the marginalized students. Okay, we hope that you join and support this endeavor, and thank you for listening. Let's continue to forge a better future for everyone. Stay safe and stay home.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lara. By next week, next Saturday, we are so excited to bring a very good group. They're a big business in India. They're called the Mercel Metal. This group specializes on assessments and online exams. And we have the CEO. I hope we can show the poster, Eileen, if you're listening, so we can invite everyone. We will prioritize the decision makers for this particular webinar, but you can still join. The webinar discussion will be, can online exam redefine the way we learn, redefine the way we appreciate learning and education. And we have the Metal Mercer live demo group, so they can show us what we can learn from just conducting online exams. So join us for this discussion. Can online exam transform how we think about learning? And our speaker is no other than the CEO of Mercer Metal, that's Siddhartha Gupta. It's gonna be a conversation with him plus a demo with his operations group so that we can all appreciate how online exams can define the next normal or the new normal for all of us. So, ladies and gentlemen, our brain sharers, our speakers, our friends who joined us from the Department of Education and from Tokopeya and STI, we thank you so much your time that you've extended to this wonderful brain sharing session. And always remember that we are all heroes for one another. Let's let's not forget that. In whatever way we can, we have to reach out, we have to share what we have. And if we haven't been convinced that we are a hero, then we start by pretending we are for ourselves and for the next person beside you or to your neighbor. We are here to make sure that we are learning more to be empathic, learning more to care, learning more to love, and learning to share and give through our brain share session. So thank you so much for appreciating all the insights shared by our speaker. Thank you for your sincere words and kind words. We appreciate you all and we are looking forward to seeing you again soon. Happy brain sharing afternoon, everyone. Bye. you.